Hello students, today we are going to take Standard 11 in English, Unit 1, The Portrait of a Lady. Myself HirenSir, and I will take you to the synopsis of this particular beautiful lesson in which you will find the bond of emotion, bond of love between the narrator and his grandmother. Here, Khushwant Singh is the writer, and in English Indian literature, he has been considered as the most prominent Indian writer. He is also columnist. He has written on various themes and issues, but here he has given a detailed account of his grandmother, whom with he had a big association of love, bond of emotion, and he had intimate relations with her since his childhood. But their friendship was broken when they had to move to the city, because in the earlier stage, when they were living in the village, their relation was too much extraordinarily good. But because of shifting from village to city, little bit, there was a problem. The English school science and music did not appeal to her, because in the village, as we know that religious hymns and religious songs are always being taught in the school. So the grandmother liked all these things, but compared to village, the scenario was changed in the city school and even in the English school. Whatever the science, whatever the music, all these subjects did not appeal to her. The narrator went abroad thereafter for the higher studies, and his arrival after 5 years from an abroad was an occasion for celebration. Even the narrator Khushwant Singh had, when he was going to departed from her, from his grandmother, he was assuming that that was his last meeting. But after 5 years, when he arrived, he found her in the state for he had left. The old lady tired herself and fell ill, because her death was mourned not only by the narrator's family but also by the sparrow she fed regularly in the afternoon. Because in the city, which type of the habit she had developed, generally she was feeding the sparrow. And when the writer arrived from the abroad, and it was perhaps the last day, last moment, last glimpse, the old stout, short and little bent grandmother is clad in white clothes and keeps on telling beads of her rosary. So another habit she had, just changing the beads of the rosary. During their long stay in village, the grandmother who used to wake Khushwant Singh in the morning, and she was also giving accompany him to the school. She took care of all small things and continued her regular prayers and reading of religious scriptures. On the way back home, she fed stray dogs with stale chapatis. Circumstances did have a bearing on the relationship between the author and his grandmother. They had most intimate relationship when they were in the village, but as they shifted to the city, there was little bit, we can say, decreasing in the relationship. because whatever the relationship in the village, they were too much intimated. But in city, because of the lack of time, the distances in their relationship was increased. Now the author was going to city school, studying all modern subjects, and the grandmother was not able to help the author in his studies. She was also feeling disturbed as there was no teaching of the God or God related any religious scripture or book because there was no any fable. So she was believing that such type of the education is futile, not needed. As the years rolled, they saw less of each other, but their feelings for each other did not change. Grandmother was a very strong and stout lady. She was very much rigid in her ways, in believing the customs and rituals, so she did not like the modern ways of the city. She led a kind of life and never compromised with her kind of life. She loved the narrator deeply but never tried to be emotional and sentimental. The grandmother devoted her time in praying, spinning, and feeding the sparrow. So, this was her habit. She did not get disturbed when the author was living for abroad and saw him of maintaining her peace and calm. So there was calmness, coolness, serenity prevailing everywhere in her personality. After a span of 5 years, the grandmother was there to receive him. She celebrated her grandson's homecoming in an unusual way by beating a drum and singing. But that was her last day because she was going to depart in the evening and she had a peaceful end. Everyone, including the sparrow, got grieved at the demise of bold religious, practicable, responsible, and loving person. On that particular day, sparrow did not eat the corn which was scattered, but they also paid homage to the religious person. She was no more in this world, but has memory kept her alive in the heart of narrator. So here we can say and we can see the relationship of Khushwant Singh with his grandmother, really fabulous, and also it is also emotional, and such type of the relationship always we have with our grandmother